My name is Jessica Callahan, and 2 months ago my sister Linda tried to steal my home and almost got my daughter taken away in the process. But I got the last word. In the Atlanta courthouse, I walked past her in handcuffs, leaned in close, and whispered, "You'll sign over the truth now, or the police will find the second recording." Her face drained. She signed. The house was mine again. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments. This story's for anyone who's ever had to fight their own blood to protect what's right. Now let me take you back to where it all started. It was just an ordinary Sunday evening. Or so I thought. We were all gathered in the living room of my husband's family house, a charming two-story in suburban Atlanta, the kind that had aged with grace and still smelled faintly of cinnamon and old cedar from the fireplace. I'd spent the afternoon helping Mom prepare her famous honey ham and stuffing, while Chloe, my 12-year-old daughter, giggled over board games with her cousins. The light in the room was golden. The wine glasses clinked gently. Laughter rolled through the air. And for a brief, rare moment I believed we were safe, happy, until Chloe tugged at my sleeve with trembling fingers. She leaned close, her small hand gripping mine. Her voice was a ghost. "Mom, we have to go. Now, please." The smile froze on my face. My throat went dry. I glanced down at her. Her cheeks were pale and her eyes, usually so full of light, shimmered with fear. "What, sweetheart, what's wrong?" Chloe shook her head fiercely. "Just please, can we go home right now?" I didn't ask another question. I simply stood up. My husband, Mark, raised his eyebrows from across the room, and my mother paused mid-sip of tea. Chloe didn't give any explanation, and I didn't press her for one. I just gathered our coats and led her out, muttering something about an early school night. The air outside had turned bitter, the kind of cold that slices straight through your sleeves. Chloe didn't speak as we walked to the car. She barely blinked. And when we got in, she locked her door. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Mark sat silently in the passenger seat, brow furrowed, glancing back at her. "What happened?" he asked under his breath. "Did someone say something?" "I don't know," I whispered back. "She just panicked." I turned up the heat and drove us home in silence. Chloe leaned her forehead against the cold window and didn't say a word the whole way back. The drive, normally soothing with its winding, quiet lanes, felt like crawling through wet cement. Every shadow we passed felt darker. Every sound outside the car too sharp. We pulled into the driveway of our modest apartment and hurried inside, the cold air chasing us through the door. Chloe went straight to her room, not even waiting for me to unlace my boots. I followed her, unease rising in my chest like smoke. She sat at the edge of her bed, still in her coat. "Chloe," I said gently, kneeling in front of her, "you're scaring me." "What happened?" Her eyes were huge. She looked at me as if unsure if she should say it out loud. "I heard Aunt Linda on the phone," she finally said. "With someone, a man, a notary, I think. She said your name, and something about a signature. And Mom, I swear I think she's trying to take Grandma's house." For a few seconds I didn't respond, because her words didn't register. Linda, my sister, the same Linda who'd made a beautiful toast over dinner an hour ago, the one who said she was so proud of me for keeping the family together, the one who brought me herbal tea from her trip to Asheville just last week. "You're saying Aunt Linda was trying to what?" Chloe's voice cracked. She said, "Once we get the deed in Jessica's name switched over, Mom won't have to know anything until it's final." Then she laughed. I stood up so fast the chair scraped the wall behind me. My pulse roared in my ears, but that didn't make sense. Linda had always been the organized one, the fixer. Sure, she could be bossy, but forge my signature. I stared at my daughter. "Chloe, are you absolutely sure that's what you heard?" She nodded, small and solemn. "I know what I heard. I wouldn't lie to you, Mom." And just like that, my chest caved in with dread. I muttered something about getting ready for bed, and walked stiffly to my room, closed the door, and stood there shaking. Because if my daughter was right, then Linda wasn't just scheming. She was coming for everything, and I didn't know who to protect first, my daughter or my memories. Our apartment felt different that night, like it had shrunk. The heat from the radiator buzzed faintly, but it didn't reach the cold knot tightening in my stomach. After we got home, Chloe changed into her pajamas and sat at the kitchen table, hands folded tightly, as if waiting to be cross-examined. I was still in my coat, standing by the fridge, trying to convince myself this wasn't what it sounded like. I broke the silence. "Okay, start from the beginning." Chloe looked up at me. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I went to the laundry room at Grandma's house to get my hoodie from the dryer. That's when I heard her." "Linda," she nodded. She was on the phone in the sunroom, the door was cracked open. And you're sure she was talking about me? Chloe hesitated. I heard her say your name. She said something like, Jessica won't even know it's happening. I've got the notary lined up already. It'll look clean. The words made me dizzy. I pulled out a chair and sat, rubbing my temples. Are you absolutely certain that's what she said? I didn't make it up. Chloe's eyes flashed with something raw. I wouldn't lie about something like this. I sighed, longer and louder than I meant to. Chloe, sometimes adults talk about things in ways that sound worse than they are. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe Linda meant something else. She flinched just barely, but I saw it. I know what I heard, Mom. She sounded sneaky. I didn't like it. I hated what came out of my mouth next, even as I was saying it. Well, maybe if you weren't eavesdropping, you wouldn't have heard anything at all. Chloe looked like I'd slapped her. I closed my eyes. That's not what I meant. You don't believe me. Her voice was so quiet it nearly vanished into the hum of the kitchen. I didn't say that. You don't have to. She got up from the table, slowly, carefully, like her body was made of glass. It's okay. I just wanted to tell you, that's all. She padded down the hallway and closed her bedroom door softly behind her. I sat alone in the dim light of the kitchen for a long time, staring at the speckled linoleum floor like it might offer an answer. Could Linda really be capable of that? We'd had our share of sisterly spats, sure, but Linda had always been the responsible one. She balanced Mom's prescriptions. She helped me manage the bills after Dad died. She was bossy, yes, but she was loyal. Wasn't she? I stood up, grabbed a glass from the cupboard, and filled it with water I didn't drink. My reflection in the kitchen window stared back at me, tired, tense, unsure. I told myself Chloe must have misheard something. There was no way my sister would forge my signature. That was criminal. Still, I walked to the drawer near the hallway, the one where I kept old property papers. I opened it halfway, then closed it again. No. I wasn't going to start unraveling my life over a child's half-heard conversation. I changed into pajamas and crawled into bed beside Mark, who was already half asleep. You okay? He mumbled. Just tired, I lied. He reached for my hand under the covers. I let him hold it, but my mind kept spinning. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay there with the weight of Chloe's words pressing down on my chest. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice, small, scared, saying we have to go now. Was I a fool for doubting her, or worse, was I right to? Either way, the unease had begun. And deep down, I knew it wouldn't leave quietly. The next morning was colder than usual, both outside and inside our little apartment. Chloe sat at the kitchen table in silence, pushing cereal around in her bowl with the back of her spoon. She didn't look up when I walked in, didn't even flinch when the floorboard creaked under my foot. I moved quietly toward the cabinet and filled the kettle, watching her out of the corner of my eye. Her face was blank. Not angry. Not sulking, just distant, like she'd already decided I wouldn't believe her again. Did you sleep okay? I asked gently. She shrugged. I guess. I waited, hoping she'd say something more, but she didn't, just kept circling her spoon like she was tracing regrets in milk. A silence stretched between us, taut and heavy. I cleared my throat. I was thinking maybe after school we could bake something together, like we used to. She gave the tiniest nod, not meeting my eyes. It stung more than I expected. After she left for school, I stood alone in the hallway for a long moment, staring at the drawer near the baseboard. The one I hadn't touched in over a year, the one that held everything. I pulled it open slowly. Inside was a manila folder labeled House Legal. My handwriting, I flipped it open. There it was. The deed to our parents' house, the inheritance agreement, a few scribbled notes from the last lawyer I'd spoken to when we were sorting Mom's long-term care. Linda's name was listed as co-executor, but the house hadn't been formally transferred to either of us yet. Just held, like a ripe apple waiting to fall to whoever reached first. I stared at the blank signature line where mine was meant to go. Nothing about it looked suspicious. Nothing on paper, anyway. But now that Chloe had planted the seed, I couldn't stop wondering, had Linda been planning something all along? Or worse, had she already started? The thought made my stomach churn. I closed the folder, but the tension lingered. By Thursday, I'd made up my mind. I didn't tell Mark. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I wasn't ready to admit I'd begun to believe Chloe. Instead, I took a long lunch from work and drove across town to a real estate attorney's office in Buckhead, just to ask a few general questions. That's what I told the receptionist. General, hypothetical. But the lawyer, a middle-aged man with a thinning hairline and keen eyes, didn't treat them as hypothetical for long. If someone were to forge a sibling's signature on a deed, he repeated, well, that's serious, criminal fraud, felony level if they try to file it with the county. I blinked. Even if the house isn't technically in either of their names yet. If there's intent to take ownership through deception, yes. He didn't ask why I was asking. But he didn't have to. By the time I walked back to my car, my hands were shaking. Still, part of me clung to the idea that maybe Chloe got it wrong. She's just 12. Maybe she heard something out of context. Maybe Linda was talking about Mom signing over power of attorney again, not the deed. But the doubts wouldn't go away. Like a flickering hallway light I kept ignoring. That weekend, I visited 2 more lawyers, each one confirming what the first had said. And by Monday, I found myself checking the county registrar's website on my lunch break, just in case. No transfers had been filed. Yet, back at home, Chloe was trying to act normal. But the space between us hadn't closed. She'd stopped asking to sit on the couch with me at night. Her good nights had turned quiet and clipped. And she barely touched the banana muffins I left out for her after school. The guilt crept in like fog. Had I made her feel like her voice didn't matter? I still wasn't ready to believe Linda could do something so deliberate, not without proof, so I waited and watched, and told myself I was just being cautious, not paranoid. But inside, something deeper was shifting, a kind of knowing I couldn't shake. 3 weeks passed, quiet ones, the kind that lull you into believing the danger has moved on. Then the letter came. It was waiting on the counter when I got home from work, propped neatly against the fruit bowl like it belonged there. Official looking. Cream envelope. Return address printed in crisp black ink. I knew before I opened it that this wasn't a coincidence. I slid it open slowly and read the first line twice. Ownership verification request. My stomach dropped. The letter explained, politely, efficiently, that certain documents required my signature to confirm continuity of ownership regarding my parents' house. No alarmist language. No threats. Just a narrow window of time and a self-addressed return envelope already stamped. 7 days. I sat down hard in the kitchen chair. Chloe wandered in a few minutes later, backpack still on, and froze when she saw my face. What is it? She asked. I swallowed. Nothing, just paperwork. She studied me carefully like she'd learned to do lately. Is it about Aunt Linda? That was it, the last crack. Yes, I said quietly. It is. Her shoulders sagged, not in relief, but in something closer to vindication mixed with sadness. She didn't say I told you so. She didn't need to. That night, after Chloe went to bed, I called a lawyer I'd been referred to by one of the firms I'd visited weeks earlier. Her name was Carmen Klein, sharp, direct, and unavailable until Friday. I took the morning off work anyway. Carmen's office was downtown Atlanta, all glass and steel, with framed certificates lining the walls like armor. She read the letter in silence, lips pressed together, eyes narrowing with every line. Then she looked up at me. Do not sign this. My heart pounded. So. It's real. It's very real, she said. And very strategic. She tapped the page with her pen. This isn't verification, this is consent. Once you sign, the next filing happens without you. I felt dizzy. So Chloe was right. Carmen didn't soften her tone. Your sister is attempting a quiet transfer. She's banking on speed and trust. Trust, the word stung. If I hadn't come in, you'd be contesting ownership in court within a month, Carmen finished. And it would be messy. I stared at the letter again, the polite phrasing, the urgency disguised as routine. How long has this been in motion? I asked. Carmen leaned back. Long enough to be planned, not long enough to be finished. For the first time in weeks, the fog lifted. This wasn't paranoia, this wasn't a misunderstanding, this was a move on a chessboard I hadn't known I was standing on. I want to stop her, I said. Not just this, all of it. Carmen nodded once. Then we do this carefully, and quietly. When I got home, Chloe was doing homework at the table. She looked up when I walked in. Did you find out? I knelt in front of her and took her hands in mine. You were right, I said, and I'm sorry I didn't listen sooner. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry, she just squeezed my fingers. From that moment on, something in me shifted. I wasn't doubting anymore. I was preparing. That night, I waited until Chloe was asleep and Mark was in the shower before I picked up my phone and dialed. My fingers hesitated over Linda's name in my contacts. The last time I'd spoken to her, we were laughing about Mom's old casserole disasters. It felt like 100 years ago. But I couldn't storm into this like I wanted to, not yet. If I showed my hand now, I'd lose whatever thin thread of control I had. So I took a breath, forced my voice into something warm and breezy, and tapped the call button. She answered on the second ring. Jess. Her voice rang out, bright and syrupy as ever. You're calling late, everything okay? I kept my tone light. Yeah, just I got something in the mail today, thought maybe you'd know about it. Oh, her pause was calculated. What kind of something? Some property paperwork about the house. I let the word hang there like fog. Ah, she said with a laugh. That was just a mix-up. The notary sent it too early. I meant to call you about it. Too early? Yeah, it's nothing binding, just a routine check thing. Her voice dropped into a more serious register. Don't worry, Jess, I'm not trying to steal your half of the house or anything. She said it with a chuckle like the very idea was absurd, but my fingers clenched tighter around the phone. I mirrored her laugh. Of course not, I just figured I'd double-check. Good instincts, she said. But seriously, it's all under control. I'll make sure the right version gets to you later. The right version. We wrapped the call soon after, both of us pretending everything was fine, but my heart was thudding against my ribs as I set the phone down. She hadn't denied sending the letter, she'd just redirected. I stared at the phone in silence, then got up and opened my laptop. I pulled up the county website Carmen had shown me, scanned through recent activity on the parcel ID. Nothing new filed. Yet. But then I remembered Carmen's warning. Paperwork is prepared long before it's filed. That's when I clicked over to the housing office portal. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, just a trace of something, anything. The website was clunky, but after 30 minutes of navigating menus, I found it. Request logs. Every inquiry logged under that property ID for the past 3 months. I clicked the view button. My breath caught. There they were. 6 separate phone records tied to one number. All requesting deed verification forms, all within the last 6 weeks. I copied the number into my phone and stared. It was Linda's. I didn't sleep that night. Mark asked if something was wrong. I told him work had my nerves in a knot. Chloe watched me the next morning with careful eyes as if waiting to see if I was going to shut down again. I didn't, but I didn't say anything either. Not yet, because knowing something and proving something were two different beasts, and I needed to be ready for both. By the end of that week, I had a notebook tucked under my bed. Not for journaling, not for healing. This one was different. I logged everything in it, every call, every visit, every vague message from Linda. I noted down dates, names, times, and the words she used. I even scribbled my own reactions in the margins, not for clarity but for memory. I needed to remember how it felt, that chill crawling up my spine each time her voice turned sweet when it should have sounded sorry. I wasn't just suspicious anymore. I was preparing for war. In the mornings, while Chloe got ready for school, I cross-checked the parcel ID and checked the registrar's site like it was a weather report. Nothing new had been filed. But that didn't mean she'd stopped. Every Thursday, I met with Carmen during my lunch break. She gave me forms to review and strategies to track communications. Carmen's advice was calm and surgical. You need evidence, not emotion. So I did the one thing I never imagined myself doing. I bought a voice recorder. One of those tiny ones people use in college lectures or interviews. I felt ridiculous walking out of the store with it tucked in my purse, like a child playing spy. But later that night, when I opened the package and tested it on a phone call to the insurance company, I realized how sharp the sound was. How clear. I tested it again the next day, hiding it beneath a book on the coffee table, just in case Linda came by unexpectedly. Chloe found it before she did. What's this? Asked, holding it up like a strange toy. I took it from her gently, just something for work. You're acting weird, she said. Her tone wasn't accusing, just worried. I'm just tired. She studied me for a moment, then turned to leave but paused. Is it about Aunt Linda? I didn't answer right away. I know something's going on, she said softly. I wish you'd talked to me like before. I reached out to brush a strand of hair from her cheek, but she stepped back just slightly, enough to sting. I'm still here, I said. But you're not letting me be, she whispered. She left the room and I stood there with the recorder in my hand, feeling the weight of what I was becoming. The next day something arrived at our door, a large bouquet. Lilies and orchids, white and pale purple, arranged with such precision it made me nervous. There was a cream card tucked neatly inside. I pulled it out with shaking fingers. Let's not fight over old bricks. Love, L. Old Bricks. It was exactly the kind of phrase Linda would use. Sentimental, playful, but laced with that smug undertone she'd perfected over the years. The implication was clear. This wasn't about property, it was about legacy, about control. Chloe walked into the kitchen just as I was rereading the card. She paused at the sight of the flowers. "Did someone die?" she asked. "No," I murmured. "Not yet." She raised an eyebrow. I tried to smile, failed. I didn't tell her who sent them. I just carried the bouquet out to the trash bin behind our building and dropped it in whole. The flowers landed with a dull thud, petals bruising on impact. The smell of lilies clung to my hands the whole evening. I washed them twice. It didn't help. The invitation came through a group text. "Mom, dinner Sunday at the retirement home, just us girls. Simple and early, 5 o'clock. Linda, I'll bring dessert, something classic. Like us winking face me, we'll be there." I typed it before I could talk myself out of it. Carmen advised caution, but not avoidance. "Let her feel safe," she'd said. "She'll slip eventually." So I packed my silence like armor. The retirement home was quiet, the kind of place where even laughter echoed politely. Mom had a private dining room reserved for us, a little space with a round table, framed landscape prints on the walls, and linen napkins folded like swans. She looked tired but excited when we arrived. "Oh good, you're here. Chloe, honey, you're growing like a weed." Chloe smiled politely, hugged her, then glanced at me. Her hand brushed mine under the table just once. A small flicker of reassurance. Linda arrived 5 minutes late like always, wearing a cream sweater set and that fake casual expression she wore like perfume, arms wide open. "Ladies," she beamed. "Don't you all look lovely?" She kissed Mom's cheek, gave Chloe a side hug, and nodded at me like we were colleagues, not sisters. She carried in a bakery box and set it on the sideboard like it was a crown jewel. "Peach cobbler," she announced. "Made it myself, but don't look too closely." "Smells amazing," Mom said. I forced a smile and helped set the table, discreetly adjusting my coat pocket where the recorder was tucked inside. I had tested it 10 times before leaving. Just a simple voice-activated model, peeking out through the lining like a quiet witness. The conversation started harmless. Recipes. New staff member Mom liked. Chloe's upcoming field trip, but Linda couldn't help herself. "So," she said over salad, "I finally got through to that woman at the housing office. Took forever, but I think we're finally moving things along." Mom blinked. "Housing office." Linda took a delicate sip of her iced tea. "You know about the house, just general inquiries, title stuff." I kept my fork moving, pretending to be fascinated by croutons. Mom looked confused. "I thought everything was settled." "No one's selling anything, right?" Linda laughed lightly. "Of course not, but with the way the market's shifting, we should at least make sure everything's current. Updated paperwork, clean titles, God forbid something happens and we're scrambling." She said it like a PSA, a concerned citizen. I felt Chloe shift beside me, stiffen almost imperceptibly. I set my napkin down. "Funny, no one mentioned any paperwork to me." Linda smiled too widely. "Oh, I didn't want to bother you. You've got your hands full." "With what?" "Oh, you know, life, work. Chloe, you've always had a lot on your plate." The sweetness in her voice curdled, and yet I smiled. "I'm capable of reading forms," I said. "Of course you are," she said brightly, turning to Mom. "Jess was always the smart one. Remember when she used to alphabetize her crayons?" Mom chuckled. "And you'd steal them when she wasn't looking." Linda laughed. "You can't steal from family," she said, sipping her tea again. My fingers tightened around the stem of my glass. Chloe didn't touch her plate. Her gaze drifted from Linda to me and back again like she was watching a chess match she already knew the ending to. After dinner, as Mom passed around dessert plates, Linda leaned back in her chair, swirling her spoon lazily. "Truth is, someone needs to take responsibility for the house, for all of it. And honestly," she shrugged, "I'm just the one who can." There it was. A confession dressed as a compliment. Mom blinked. "Linda, I'm not saying Jess can't help, but someone has to lead, keep things organized." I met her eyes across the table and smiled. "You're right," I said. "It's good someone's finally paying attention." She tilted her head, not sure whether it was a jab or an agreement. The recorder in my coat captured every syllable. Later, as we left, Chloe stayed a step behind. When we got to the car, she asked softly, "Did you hear what she said?" I nodded. "I heard everything." And now, finally, so would someone else. It started with a phone call I'll never forget. I had just finished replying to an email at work when my cell buzzed. It was Mrs. Rayburn, our elderly neighbor from the unit across the hall. She never called unless it was important. Jessica, she said breathlessly. Has Chloe come home yet? My pulse jumped. Not yet, why? Well, it's after 4 and I usually see her pass my window around 3:15. But not today. I waited, thinking maybe she had an after-school thing, but I don't know, something didn't feel right. I stood up so fast my chair scraped the tile. Thank you, Mrs. Rayburn, I'll check in with her school. I hung up and called Chloe's phone, straight to voicemail. The sound of her cheerful, pre-recorded voice nearly undid me. I tried again, still nothing. I called the school office. The secretary checked quickly. She was here today, Jessica, marked present in every class. Left at 3:01. But she never made it home. I tried to steady my breathing as I grabbed my keys and hurried to the car. She probably just stopped somewhere, I told myself. A friend's house, the park. Maybe her phone died, but I already knew. No, this wasn't like Chloe. I drove the route she usually took from school, cutting through the little neighborhood park, then past the grocery store. I slowed by every sidewalk, every corner, every fence she'd ever leaned against. No sign of her. I called 3 of her friends' parents. None had seen her. By 5:15 I was in full panic mode. Mark was out of town for work, unreachable on a flight to Dallas, so I called the police. They were kind, professional, but not alarmed. Kids her age wander off sometimes. Arguments, school stress. Do you know if she was upset about anything recently? I wanted to scream. Upset? Of course she was upset. Her aunt was trying to steal our family's home and gaslight me into thinking I was paranoid. I need someone to take this seriously, I said, biting the edge of each word. We'll file the report and circulate a description, the officer replied. But unless she's been missing for more than 24 hours or there's a sign of foul play, our hands are limited. They gave me a case number and a generic flyer template. I stared at it through tears. It felt like standing at the edge of a cliff and being told to just wait and see if I fell. Then the knock came. It was past 6. I'd been pacing the apartment, phone in hand, calling Chloe every 5 minutes. I opened the door and there she was, Linda. She stood there with a solemn expression, clutching a small bag of groceries like it meant something. I heard, she said softly. Carmen texted me, said you were looking for Chloe. I blinked. Why would Carmen tell you that? She waved her hand. We still exchange updates. We're family, Jess. I couldn't believe her nerve. Did you come here to help or to snoop? Linda's lips twitched into something resembling concern. I came because you're my sister and because I know how scary this must be. I stepped aside stiffly, letting her in. She set the bag down, orange juice, soup, cookies, all useless. Have you checked her tablet history? She asked. Kids leave breadcrumbs. Maybe she planned to go somewhere. She didn't plan to disappear, I snapped. She's not like that. She glanced around the apartment, eyes roaming too freely. No signs of struggle, she murmured. Maybe she just needed space. You've been under a lot of stress lately. Maybe she felt that. The implication in her voice made my skin crawl. She didn't run away, I said flatly. Linda gave me a long, unreadable look. I hope you're right. She left a few minutes later after offering to help organize a neighborhood search, but I didn't believe a word of it. The moment the door shut behind her, I collapsed onto the couch. Everything in me screamed this wasn't random. Someone knew something. And I had a sickening feeling who that someone might be. 2 nights passed in a fog of half-sleep and constant dread. I kept the lights on in every room. Chloe's door stayed open, her bed untouched. Her cereal bowl sat exactly where she'd left it that morning, just in case she came home and needed proof that things could still be normal. The police made their rounds. An officer came by with a notepad and kind eyes, asking questions I barely answered. Her backpack was found near the community park, damp from the sprinklers. No fingerprints. No clues. The media didn't care. 12-year-olds go missing all the time, apparently. Not enough blood. Not enough drama, but I couldn't breathe. I couldn't eat. I called every number I knew. Reached out to extended family, teachers, neighbors. I even called the Cobb County School District's transportation office, begging them to check security footage from the bus lanes. No one saw her leave. And Linda had the audacity to text me that night with a simple, thinking of you, hope you're getting rest. Rest. I stared at her message until the screen dimmed. That second night, somewhere around 11:30 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown caller. I hesitated for half a heartbeat, then answered. There was static at first, then a voice. Mom, my knees buckled, I sank to the floor. Chloe, don't talk, just listen, she whispered. Her voice was trembling like she was holding back tears or fear. I'm okay, I'm at a place called Pine Hollow, it's a farm, there's a red sign out front, I think it's in Wilburn County. Baby, I have to go, she said quickly. They're checking phones, please come get me. Then the line went dead. I sat frozen for a second, staring at the call screen as it disappeared. Then I sprang into motion. I called the local precinct again, told them what happened. The dispatcher patched me through to Detective Ramos, the lead assigned to Chloe's case. A sharp woman in her late 40s with a voice like steel and a reputation for being relentless. Within 30 minutes, she was at my door. "Ace the call," Ramos said, already buckling herself into the driver's seat of her cruiser as I climbed in beside her. "The number pings off a tower in Wilburn, that's rural country, mostly farmland and private facilities." "How far is it?" 2.5 hours, maybe less with lights on. She drove like the road owed her something. I held my breath the whole way. The trees grew denser as we got closer, the road narrowed. I kept checking my phone, hoping for another call. Another message, anything. Finally, we turned onto a gravel path marked with a rusted red sign. Pine Hollow Growers Cooperative Authorized Personnel, only the place looked forgot. Chain-link fencing lined the outer perimeter, and a long dirt driveway led to a set of modular trailers and utility sheds. A few trucks were parked haphazardly in the mud. Ramos radioed for backup. "Stay in the car," she told me. "No." She glanced at me but didn't argue. 2 officers joined us within minutes. We approached the largest trailer with flashlights and firm voices. The door opened slowly, revealing a wiry man in a worn-out baseball cap who looked like he hadn't slept in days. "What's this about?" he asked, blinking against the lights. Ramos stepped forward. "We have reason to believe a minor is being held here without legal consent." His face blanched. I didn't know she was a minor. I swear she had papers, signed by a guardian." "Show me," Ramos snapped. The man disappeared inside and returned with a crumpled form, signed consent to employ a minor under parental supervision. The signature was mine, only it wasn't. I took one look and felt the blood roar in my ears. Linda's handwriting. Ramos read it, then looked up at him. "You're telling me this is her mother's signature?" "She told me it was," he muttered. Said the girl needed a fresh start. We heard a noise behind the shed. Movement. Ramos motioned to the second officer. Within moments, the trailer door opened again and Chloe was there. Filthy, shaking, but alive. She ran straight into my arms. I held her so tightly I think I forgot how to speak. That's when I stopped being afraid. And started being angry. The sirens came later. After Ramos confirmed Chloe's safety, after I wrapped her in my coat and held her against my chest like I was trying to keep her soul from slipping out again, the squad cars finally arrived in force. Red and blue lights flashed across the trailers and fields of Pine Hollow like a warning flare exploding in the dark. Chloe clung to me as officers secured the site. She didn't cry. Not yet. Just shook in quiet waves like her body hadn't caught up to her fear. Detective Ramos approached the wiry man, the one who opened the trailer door, and motioned him to the side. I followed close behind, Chloe still pressed to my side. "I need your full name," Ramos said firmly. "Need to know how this child ended up on your payroll." His voice cracked. "I didn't kidnap nobody, I thought it was legal. She came with a signed release, said her guardian arranged everything." "Guardian?" Ramos pressed. "Her aunt, Linda Callahan, said the mom was going through some kind of breakdown and they didn't want the kid in the system." My fingers tightened around Chloe's shoulder. He wiped his palms on his jeans. "I thought I was doing something good." She said the girl needed structure. "A place to cool off." "She was under constant watch," I snapped. "You hit her." He looked at me, eyes full of regret or maybe just fear of the consequences. "She wasn't locked in. She worked some greenhouse shifts, helped with cataloging, honest stuff, I didn't hurt her." "She's 12, I said through my teeth. "You don't have to hurt someone for it to be wrong." He opened his mouth to argue but didn't. Ramos held up the forged form again. "You believed this." She showed me ID. She had the girl's school records. "All this paper, I thought it was above board." "You mean she gave you just enough to avoid questions?" Ramos said coldly. The second officer emerged from the side trailer with a clipboard and what looked like a thick binder of time cards. "2 other names tied to operations," he said. "Supervisors, they signed off on her hours." "Cuff them," Ramos ordered. Within minutes, 2 men were led out in handcuffs. one in a stained flannel jacket, the other still wearing garden gloves. They looked confused, panicked. Chloe's eyes followed them the entire time. "You're safe now," I whispered. "You're coming home, I promise." She finally spoke, just one small word. "Why?" I knelt to meet her eyes. "Why what, baby? Why would Aunt Linda do that to me?" There were 1,000 answers, and none because she wanted control, because she thought power made her invincible. Because some people only love what they can dominate. But all I said was, because she thought I wouldn't fight back. Chloe nodded slowly, like the truth sat heavy but understandable. We sat in the back of the cruiser while Ramos secured the documents. "She's already guilty of fraud," she said. "But this is child endangerment, Jessica. Transporting a minor across county lines with forged paperwork, this isn't just a mistake, it's calculated." "She wanted to make me panic," I said quietly, "and sign whatever she gave me out of fear. She went too far. Yes, far enough to finally fall." As Ramos radioed in the formal charges, I looked down at Chloe's dirt-streaked face, her exhausted eyes, and I made myself a promise. Linda wasn't going to manipulate a single piece of my life again. Not my name, not my daughter, not my home, not ever. I didn't dress for triumph. I dressed for war. Simple navy blazer, low bun, no makeup except a clear gloss that wouldn't smudge when I spoke the truth. Chloe wore the dress she picked herself, blue with tiny sunflowers. The same one she'd worn for her first school award ceremony. It still fit, barely. We walked into the downtown Atlanta courthouse together, hand in hand. The moment the doors opened, I saw her. Linda, standing beside her attorney, shoulders too straight, face painted in poise. Like she was going to a brunch, not a bond hearing. She looked over and smiled. That same calm, smug little curve of her lips. But it faltered when she saw Chloe. We didn't nod. We didn't speak. We just walked past her like the air she never stopped trying to control. Detective Ramos met us just outside the hearing room. She handed me a printed copy of the arrest report. The charges listed in bold type. Forgery of legal documents, child endangerment, intent to defraud in property transfer. And if her lawyer's smart, Ramos added, she'll push for a plea. The press already caught wind. She wasn't joking. The moment the courtroom opened to public observation, a reporter from Channel 9 News started scribbling notes like wildfire. A photographer waited near the front steps. Linda's attorney tried to suppress cameras, but the judge overruled. "This is a public safety matter," she said firmly. "Let the truth be seen." Linda was called first. She stood, smoothed her skirt, and approached the bench. Her lawyer did most of the speaking, talking about miscommunication, a lapse in judgment, and family tensions that spiraled out of control. But the prosecution wasn't buying it. They presented the signed labor form with my forged signature, the housing documents she tried to rush past me, the recorder transcripts from the retirement home dinner, and then, finally, Chloe's prepared statement. My daughter sat up straight in the witness seat, legs swinging above the floor, and read from a note card she'd written with her therapist. "I was scared," she said. "I didn't know why she made me leave. I thought I did something wrong, but I didn't. I just wanted to come home." Her voice never broke. Linda didn't look at her, not once. When it was my turn to speak, I stood. "I trusted my sister with everything," I said. "My daughter, my home, our family legacy. And she used that trust like a tool, like a weapon." I paused, making sure Linda was looking at me now. "You didn't just try to steal from me," I said. "You tried to erase me." Silence filled the room. Then came the judge's final order. Linda Callahan would be held pending sentencing with full charges approved. As the deputies stepped forward to cuff her, the last of her composure cracked. "No, wait," she gasped, turning to the crowd, to the cameras, to me. "This wasn't supposed to happen like this. I was supposed to fix things." "Fix?" I repeated, stepping forward just once. I always felt like you had it all," Linda choked out. "The husband, the kid, the decent life, and I got stuck cleaning up everything. Mom, Dad, the bills, you never had to carry it." My voice stayed calm. "You could have asked for help, you didn't have to destroy what we built." Tears streamed down her face now, raw and jagged. The cameras didn't blink. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but it wasn't a request for forgiveness. It was a realization, a too-late truth. As the officers escorted her out, the flashbulbs popped. Her head bowed. The straps of her heels clicked against the marble like punctuation marks on the end of her delusion. I didn't follow. Chloe slipped her hand into mine again. Outside, the courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. One asked me if I had a statement. I looked into the lens. My name is Jessica Callahan, and my sister tried to steal everything that mattered to me, so I fought back, and I won. Then I turned to Chloe and whispered, "Let's go home." And we did. The courtroom was behind us, but the echoes stayed for weeks. The sentence came quietly, tucked between court dates and media cycles that had moved on. Linda received 2 years probation, a hefty fine, and mandatory restitution to cover legal damages and counseling expenses. Her confession spared her jail time. Her shame didn't. Carmen Klein called me as soon as the ruling hit her desk. "It's over," she said. "The court nullified every document she touched. The property is legally yours. No contest, no loopholes." I sat down on the edge of our bed and finally let the breath out that I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. "And Chloe," Carmen added, "if you ever need help down the line with school advocacy or safety records, I've got referrals. Don't hesitate." "Thank you," I whispered. "For everything." Carmen paused. "You did this, Jessica, all of it. I just helped you steer." After we hung up, I walked into Chloe's room. She was coloring at her desk, her music softly humming in the background. When she saw my face, she turned in her chair, eyes wide. "It's done," I told her. "We're safe, the house is safe, everything's okay." She stood slowly, then wrapped her arms around me, tighter than she had since the day I found her. Her voice was soft but certain. "I knew you'd fix it." That night she asked to sleep in my bed. We lay shoulder to shoulder, staring at the ceiling, the faint scent of her lavender shampoo on the pillow. "Do you think she meant it?" she asked after a while. "What Aunt Linda said, that she was jealous." "I think she believed it," I answered. "But that doesn't make it okay." Chloe nodded. "She looked different in court, like she was smaller than I remembered." "She always was," I said quietly. "But she worked hard to make us think otherwise." The days that followed were strangely peaceful. We returned to routines that once felt mundane but now felt like victory: Saturday grocery trips, Sunday laundry, movie nights with popcorn and too many blankets. Chloe started trauma counseling the next week. Her therapist, a gentle woman named Ms. Rena, was patient and quiet-spoken. After her first session, Chloe came home and told me they were working on building her inner fortress. I smiled at that, because I knew she already had one. She just needed to remember where the door was. Meanwhile, I signed the final deed transfer with Carmen. Her office had it framed for me, "A little extra touch," she said, "for your wall of proof." I hung it near the hallway across from Chloe's framed school certificate. Proof of two things. The house was mine, and so was the strength to fight for it. One night, after Chloe had gone to bed, I opened a letter that had been sitting in our mailbox for days. It was from Linda. "Jess, I know you probably hate me. I don't blame you. What I did was unforgivable. But I still want you to know I never stopped thinking of us as sisters, even when I lost sight of what that should mean. I'm working with a nonprofit now, helping to educate families about property law. Irony, I know, they monitor me, but I'm trying. If Chloe ever wants to ask me why, I'll answer, honestly, even if it costs me more, take care of her, and take care of yourself." I read it twice, folded it neatly, then slid it into the back of the same drawer where I used to keep the deed. Not because I forgave her, but because I believed in keeping records of things I survived. The next morning, Chloe met me in the kitchen with sleep-mussed hair and arms outstretched. She wrapped around my waist and stayed there a moment before saying her usual, "I knew you'd fix it." I smiled, kissed the top of her head, and poured her cereal, not because things were perfect, but because they were ours again. 1 year later, the backyard smelled like ribs, charcoal, and summer grass. Chloe was running barefoot across the lawn, shrieking with laughter as the neighborhood kids chased her through the sprinkler. Her cheeks were flushed, her braids stuck to her neck, and her eyes were alive again. Mark manned the grill with a pair of tongs in one hand and a beer in the other, turning burgers with the smug pride of someone who had finally mastered the flame. And I was just watching. Not worrying, not bracing for a phone call or a knock on the door, just breathing. Our house, my house, stood solid behind us, the siding freshly painted, the porch swing fixed, and the upstairs windows now filled with potted plants and light. Inside, the kitchen table was lined with potluck dishes brought by neighbors, and on the far wall hung a photo I'd printed last month. Me and Chloe, arms around each other, standing in front of the courthouse the day everything was settled. Beneath it, in a delicate wooden frame, was the final deed. Signed, stamped, untouchable. At one point, Chloe ran over and threw her arms around me, dripping water onto my sundress. "Best barbecue ever," she grinned, teeth shining. I kissed her forehead. You say that every year, she smirked. We've only had one. Still, it counted. After sunset, when the sky turned deep blue and the fireflies came out, I slipped away to the front porch for a moment of quiet. A letter was waiting on the porch table. I hadn't seen it earlier. No envelope, just a folded sheet of paper with my name in careful handwriting I now knew better than my own. Linda, I opened it slowly. Jess, I hope you're well. I saw on the local news that you and Chloe were doing a fundraiser with the school. She looks so tall. I'm glad. I'm still volunteering, mostly small work. Filing, helping organize family rights clinics. They say I'm doing good. I hope I am. I think of you both often. Not because I expect anything, but because I want you to know I'm still learning what truth really costs. Take care of her, of yourself. You're stronger than you know. I folded the letter in half and tucked it under a flower pot. I didn't know if I'd keep it, not yet. I sat back in the porch swing and let it move beneath me, slow and soft. Then I said, to no one in particular, some truths cost everything, but we kept our home. And our hearts. Behind me, laughter rang from the backyard, and I let it carry us into the night.